Wake up, Santa Fe. What's the weather say?
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. This is Jay Fott with Santa Fe Weather. Today we're going to talk about the winter weather forecast. If you recall, a few months ago I did release my winter weather forecast pretty far in advance of the winter weather season. But now that we are into the month of October and closer to winter weather, let's go ahead and revisit that and see if anything needs to change. I'll give you a hint right away that for the most part, my forecast is going to remain intact. Let's also first talk about El Nino and La Nina and what that means to our winter weather typically in New Mexico and what's going to happen this year. Well, El Nino, if you remember, is the warming of the Pacific waters, and La Nina is the cooling of the Pacific waters. And when it's neither an El Nino or a La Nina, sometimes people call that a La Nada or a neutral period. And that's exactly what I had forecasted a few months ago for this winter. And we are going to see some of that this winter, but we also have drifted into a very weak La Nina. So now that we are into the month of October, we've started to notice the cooling of the Pacific waters, and a very weak La Nina is forecasted for the next few months. And then we'll go back into that neutral period as we head into the end of winter and into the spring months. So typically what happens during an El Nino winter is that we have above normal precipitation. And oftentimes it's above normal temperatures too, so more rainfall, but in some years we have some cooler temperatures, and that can bring in some heavier snowfall in New Mexico. Now, in a La Nina year, what happens is we have above normal temperatures and below normal precipitation. And that's kind of what the National Weather Service is forecasting. However, I have some differences here in my forecast a little bit because this is going to be a very weak La Nina. So it's going to be very similar from a very weak La Nina to a neutral period. And it's very difficult to forecast what it's going to be when you have a very weak La Nina or a neutral period, because basically it could go either way. We could have above normal temperatures or below normal precipitation. So what I've done is I've taken a look at the last 70 years worth of weather data in northern New Mexico. Now, since we live in Santa Fe, you would think I would look at the Santa Fe weather data, but there's a problem there. There's 40 years worth of missing data in Santa Fe weather records. So from 1958 to 1998, no reliable weather information was kept officially in Santa Fe. So I looked at other locations nearby that are similar to Santa Fe, and the closest location really is Los Alamos. Los Alamos is above 7,000 feet, close in elevation to Santa Fe, a little bit higher in elevations and more in the mountains, and influenced more by the Jemez Mountains in Santa Fe, but overall it can be pretty comparable. So as you take a look at the last 70 years worth of snowfall data in Los Alamos, and you look at the very weak La Nina years, so we're just taking a look at the very weak La Nina years. And so there's 12 of those 70 years were called very weak or weak La Ninas. So as you can see here, we have some pretty interesting information here, because as I mentioned, in a very weak La Nina, it could go either way. It could be well above normal or well below normal. And that's exactly what has happened. If you noticed in I believe it was the 2017-2018 period, we only had about 5.9 inches of snow in Los Alamos, very similar to that in Santa Fe, because we did have records then. So it's just about 6 inches in Santa Fe. So it's very close to that. And then, so that was one of the driest and least amount of snows that we had in any winter, whether it's El Nino, La Nina, anytime. And then look at 1984-85. Over 100 inches of snow was reported in Los Alamos. And in Santa Fe, we had probably about 40 to 50 inches of snow that year in Santa Fe. So it was a lot of snow. So it could go either way between one year or the next. You will notice, if you look at just the last, since the year 2000, a lot of those years have been mainly below normal. And so maybe it's time for an above normal year too. So let's go ahead and take a look at my forecast. Here you can see that we're going to see pretty much some cooler temperatures in the eastern plains of Colorado and also into the central plain states. In New Mexico, I expect for temperatures to be maybe slightly below normal in northeast New Mexico, but for the most part in Santa Fe, we're going to be pretty close to normal temperatures. And then above normal temperatures are expected across to, the southwest from San Diego to Phoenix. Now, when you look at also the precipitation, it's going to be very similar to that too. We'll see a chance for above normal snowfall across the eastern plains of Colorado into extreme northeastern New Mexico. I think Los Alamos will probably see slightly above normal precipitation or snowfall for this year. Typically, Los Alamos sees about 42 inches, so perhaps they might see between 44 and 49 inches. So not tremendous amounts of snowfall this year, but slightly above normal. And that's going to be the same thing for the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. But here in the city of Santa Fe, we're probably going to wind up pretty close to normal. And normal for Santa Fe is about 22 inches of snow. So it's going to be similar to what we had last year. But the difference this year too is that last year, most of that snow that we had came in one snowfall in November. If you remember, in early November, we had about a 15-inch snowfall, which was crazy. It was great to see that. And we thought, oh, we're going to have a banner of a year, but it barely snowed after that. Most of the snow happened right there in the month of November, and we didn't get a whole lot after that. This year, I think it's going to be spread out a little bit more. We probably are going to see a pretty wet November and December, and that might allow for some above normal snowfall early on. And again, I think it will be spread out throughout much of the winter season though. So overall, that's my winter weather forecast. Expect for near normal temperatures and near normal snowfall for Santa Fe, and maybe slightly above normal as you head towards northern New Mexico, including Los Alamos, Taos, and especially in northeastern New Mexico. So if you haven't followed us yet, please be sure to follow the Santa Fe Weather Facebook page, and you can always check out our website at santafewx.com. Thanks for following.